The starship Eos descended through Earth's thick and poisonous atmosphere. Its metal frame groaned as it fought against the pressure of re-entry. Captain Lucas Gray stood at the front of the ship, staring out at the swirling clouds below. His face was serious, his jaw tight. Earth was supposed to be humanity's home, a place where life began. But now, centuries after humans had left it behind, it had become something else entirely. It was no longer just a planet. It was a dangerous, unpredictable world that didn't want visitors. Behind him, the crew prepared for their mission. They called it Operation Reclamation. The team was made up of scientists and soldiers, all chosen for their skills and bravery. Among them was Dr. Emily Dawson, a biologist who had spent years studying old records of Earth. She believed there was still hope for this broken planet, even though most people thought it was beyond saving. To her, Earth wasn't just a lost cause. It was a mystery waiting to be solved. As the ship landed in a valley filled with ruins, the crew stepped out carefully. The ground beneath their boots was cracked and dry, littered with pieces of rusted metal and crumbling buildings. The air smelled sharp and bitter like chemicals burning in a fire. Every breath felt heavy, even though they wore advanced suits to protect them. "This is worse than I imagined," muttered Sergeant Ryan Cole, one of the soldiers. He adjusted his helmet and scanned the area warily. "It's not just hostile. It feels alive." Emily ignored him. Her eyes were wide with excitement. As she looked around, she saw strange plants growing between the rocks, twisted vines with leaves that shimmered faintly. Some of them oozed a sticky liquid that sizzled when it touched the ground. Other plants had flowers that glowed softly, almost like they were alive. To Emily, these were signs of resilience. Life on Earth hadn't given up completely. Instead, it had adapted in ways that were both beautiful and terrifying. "This place is incredible," Emily said, kneeling to examine a patch of glowing moss. "Look at how these organisms have evolved. They're surviving despite everything we've done to this planet," Lucas frowned. "Surviving or thriving, because if it's the latter, we might have a problem." He pointed toward the horizon where shadows moved unnaturally. Shapes darted between the ruins, too quick to see clearly. Whatever lived here wasn't human, and it wasn't friendly. Night fell quickly, bringing with it an eerie silence. The crew set up camp near the ship, surrounding themselves with floodlights to keep the darkness at bay. But even with the lights, the sense of being watched never went away. Strange noises echoed around them. Low growls, high-pitched whistles, and the sound of something large moving just outside the circle of light. No one slept well that night. In the morning, the team gathered to discuss their plan. Their mission was simple: collect samples, study the environment, and figure out if Earth could support human life again. If it couldn't, they needed to understand why. For Emily, this was more than just a job, it was personal. She had grown up hearing stories about Earth, the blue skies, the green forests, the endless oceans. Those stories felt like fairy tales now, but she refused to believe they were gone forever. "We should split into teams," Lucas suggested. "One group stays here to guard the ship, and the other goes out to explore. Emily, you'll lead the exploration team." Emily nodded eagerly. Along with her were two soldiers, Ryan and Private Alex Carter, and another scientist named Dr. Maria Lopez. Together, they ventured into the wilderness, leaving the safety of the camp behind. The terrain was treacherous, full of jagged rocks and deep crevices. The air grew thicker the farther they went, making it harder to breathe even with their suits. After hours of walking, they came across a clearing. At first glance, it seemed empty. But then Emily noticed something disturbing. Scattered across the ground were bones, human bones. They were old, brittle, and fused with bits of metal. It looked like whoever these people had been, they had tried to survive here but failed miserably. "This doesn't make sense," Maria whispered, crouching beside one of the skeletons. "These bones are decades old, maybe even centuries. How did they get here? And what happened to them?" Before anyone could answer, the ground trembled slightly. A low rumble echoed through the air, growing louder by the second. Then from the shadows, creatures emerged. They were unlike anything the team had ever seen. Part animal, part machine. Their bodies were covered in jagged armor, and their eyes glowed red. One of them let out a deafening roar before charging at the group. "Run!" Ryan shouted, firing his weapon instinctively. The team turned and fled, dodging attacks as they sprinted back toward the camp. The creatures pursued them, relentlessly, their movements swift and precise. When they finally reached the safety of the floodlights, the hybrids stopped, retreating into the darkness. Breathing heavily, Emily stared into the shadows, her mind racing. What were those things? Were they natural, or had they been created, somehow? And most importantly, what did they want? Back at the camp, tensions ran high. Lucas confronted Emily, his voice sharp with frustration. "We can't stay here, this planet is trying to kill us." "But we can't leave yet," Emily argued. "There's so much we don't understand. Those creatures, the plants, the ruins. We need more time." Lucas shook his head. "Time is a luxury we don't have. If we stay, we risk losing everyone." Despite his warnings, Emily remained determined. She knew the risks, but she also knew the potential rewards. If they could unlock the secrets of Earth, they might find a way to save not only this planet but also the dying colonies scattered across the galaxy. And so, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the desolate landscape, the debate continued. The crew was divided, unsure of what to do next. But one thing was certain: Earth wasn't going to make their decision easy. The next morning, the crew woke up to a sky filled with dark clouds. The air felt heavier than before, pressing down on them like an invisible weight. Emily Dawson stood outside the ship, staring at the horizon. Her mind was racing with questions. What had happened to Earth? Why were there hybrid creatures roaming the land? And what secrets did this planet hold that could explain its transformation? Captain Lucas Gray approached her, his expression serious. "Emily, we need to decide what to do next," he said. "Staying here is too dangerous. Those things, those hybrids, they're not just animals. They're something else entirely." "I know," Emily replied, her voice calm but firm. "But running away won't solve anything. We came here to find answers, and I'm not leaving until we do." Lucas sighed. He respected Emily's determination, but he also knew the risks. The mission wasn't just about science, it was about survival. If they made the wrong choice, they might not make it back to their colonies alive. After a brief discussion, the team agreed to split into two groups again. One group would stay behind to guard the ship, while the other would explore further. Emily led the exploration team, which included Sergeant Ryan Cole, Private Alex Carter, and Dr. Maria Lopez. Armed with weapons, scanners, and sample kits, they set out into the wilderness, heading deeper into the unknown. As they walked, the landscape changed. The cracked earth gave way to dense patches of strange vegetation. Some plants looked harmless, with soft leaves and delicate flowers. Others were menacing, with sharp thorns and tendrils that seemed to move on their own. Emily stopped frequently to take notes and collect samples. She was fascinated by how life on Earth had adapted to survive in such harsh conditions. "Look at this," she said, pointing to a cluster of glowing mushrooms. "These emit light even during the day. It's almost like they've developed their own energy source." Maria knelt beside her, examining the fungi closely. "If we can figure out how they work, we might be able to use them to improve our colony's energy systems," she said. Ryan rolled his eyes. "Great. Let me know when you two are done playing scientists so we can focus on staying alive." Emily smiled faintly but didn't respond. She understood Ryan's frustration. This mission was dangerous, and every step they took brought new challenges. Still, she couldn't help feeling excited. Earth was full of mysteries, and each discovery brought them closer to understanding why it had become so hostile. After several hours of walking, the team reached a ridge overlooking a vast valley. In the distance, they saw ruins, massive structures half buried in the ground. The buildings were twisted and broken, their surfaces covered in vines and moss. It looked like the remains of a city, long abandoned and reclaimed by nature. "This must have been one of the old cities," Emily said, her voice filled with awe. "Imagine what stories these walls could tell." "We don't have time for sightseeing," Ryan muttered, scanning the area for threats. Let's grab some samples and get out of here. They descended into the valley cautiously, keeping their weapons ready. As they approached the ruins, they noticed something unusual. Carved into the walls of the buildings were symbols, strange patterns that didn't match any known language. Emily ran her fingers over the markings, her heart pounding with excitement. These aren't random designs, she said. They're deliberate. Someone or something put these here. Maria nodded. Could they be from the people who lived here before? Or maybe from whoever created those hybrids? Before anyone could answer, the ground trembled slightly. A low rumble echoed through the valley, growing louder by the second. The team froze, listening intently. Then, from the shadows of the ruins, movement caught their attention. Figures emerged, more of the hybrid creatures, their red eyes glowing like embers. There's too many of them, Alex shouted, raising his weapon. Fall back, Ryan ordered, firing a warning shot to keep the creatures at bay. The team retreated, quickly, dodging attacks as they sprinted toward higher ground. The hybrids pursued them relentlessly, their movements swift and coordinated. Just when it seemed like they wouldn't escape, Emily spotted a narrow crevice in the rocks. In there, she yelled, pointing toward the opening. The team followed her lead, squeezing through the tight space as the hybrids clawed at the entrance. Once inside, they found themselves in a tunnel, dimly lit by glowing moss on the walls. Okay, now, what? Ryan asked, catching his breath. We're trapped underground with no idea where this leads. We keep moving, Emily said firmly. This tunnel might lead us somewhere important. Besides, going back isn't an option. Reluctantly, the others agreed. They moved carefully through the passage, their footsteps echoing softly. The air grew cooler as they ventured deeper, and the glowing moss provided just enough light to see by. After what felt like hours, they reached a large chamber. In the center of the room stood a massive structure, an artifact unlike anything they'd ever seen. It was shaped like a sphere, pulsing with a faint blue light. Strange symbols covered its surface, similar to the ones they'd seen in the ruins. The air around it crackled with energy, making their skin tingle. What is this thing? Maria whispered, her voice trembling. I don't know, Emily admitted, stepping closer. But it's controlling something. Maybe the ecosystem above? Or even the hybrids? Before she could examine it further, the ground shook violently. The hybrids had found them. Their growls echoed through the tunnel, growing louder as they approached. The team prepared to defend themselves, knowing they couldn't fight off so many enemies. We need to destroy it, Ryan said, gripping his weapon tightly. Whatever this thing is, it's causing all of this. No, Emily protested. We can't just destroy it without understanding what it does. It might be the key to fixing Earth. We don't have time for experiments, Ryan snapped. Either we blow it up, or we die here. The argument was cut short as the hybrids burst into the chamber. Chaos erupted as the team fought desperately to hold them off. Alex shoved Emily behind him, shielding her from an attack. Go, he shouted. I'll cover you. Emily hesitated, torn between gratitude and guilt. But she knew Alex was right. If she didn't act now, they might never uncover the truth about Earth. With tears in her eyes, she turned and ran toward the artifact, pulling a small explosive device from her pack. She planted it carefully, setting the timer for 5 minutes. Get out of here, she yelled to the others. I'll meet you back at the ship. Ryan cursed under his breath but grabbed Maria's arm, pulling her toward the exit. Alex stayed behind, firing wildly to keep the hybrids at bay. Go! He shouted again, his voice strained. I'll be right behind you! Emily sprinted through the tunnel, her heart pounding. Behind her, the artifact pulsed faster, as if reacting to her actions. When she finally emerged into the open air, she collapsed onto the ground, gasping for breath. Moments later, a deafening explosion rocked the valley, sending a shockwave through the area. The hybrids screeched in anger, retreating into the shadows. The team regrouped near the ship, battered but alive. Emily looked back at the ruins, her mind swirling with questions. Had she made the right choice? Would destroying the artifact change anything? Or had she doomed Earth forever? As the Eos lifted off the ground, leaving the desolate planet behind, Emily stared out the window. The mission had been chaotic, dangerous, and far from over. But one thing was certain. Earth wasn't just a death world. It was a world fighting back, refusing to give up, even if it meant resisting humanity itself. The Eos soared through the sky, leaving Earth's toxic atmosphere behind. Inside the ship, the crew was silent. Some stared out the windows at the shrinking planet below, while others sat in quiet reflection. The mission had been chaotic, dangerous, and far from what they had expected. Emily Dawson sat near the front of the cabin, her hands clasped tightly together. Her mind replayed the events of the past few days, especially the explosion in the underground chamber. She had destroyed the artifact, but she couldn't shake the feeling that it wasn't over. Earth still held secrets, and some of them might have been buried deeper than anyone realized. Captain Lucas Gray broke the silence first. "We need to debrief," he said firmly, his voice cutting through the tension. "What happened down there? And what do we do next?" Emily looked up, her expression conflicted. "I don't know if blowing up the artifact was the right call," she admitted. "It felt like we were interrupting something important, something ancient." Ryan Cole, who was sitting nearby, frowned. Interrupting? That thing was controlling those hybrids, or worse. It was making Earth hostile on purpose. We did the right thing by destroying it. "Maybe," Emily replied softly. "But we didn't understand it fully. What if it wasn't just causing destruction? What if it was trying to heal the planet in its own way?" Maria Lopez, the other scientist, leaned forward. "Heal it? By creating monsters and turning the air toxic? That doesn't sound like healing, to me." Emily sighed. She knew they had a point, but something about the artifact stayed with her. The way it pulsed, the symbols etched into its surface. It wasn't random. Someone or something had built it for a reason. And now, that reason was lost forever. As the discussion continued, Alex Carter entered the room. His face was pale, and he moved slowly, favoring one leg. He had taken the brunt of the fight against the hybrids, and his injuries showed it. Despite his pain, he forced a weak smile. "Sorry I'm late," he said. "Just needed a moment to rest." Lucas nodded. "You did good back there, Alex. We wouldn't have made it out without you." Alex shrugged modestly. "Just doing my job." The captain turned back to the group. "We've got bigger problems than second-guessing ourselves. The explosion might have scared off the hybrids for now, but we don't know how long that will last. If they regroup, or if whatever controlled them decides to retaliate, we could be in serious trouble." Emily nodded reluctantly. As much as she wanted to focus on the artifact, Lucas was right. Their priority was survival. The crew needed to figure out their next steps carefully. They couldn't afford another mistake. Hours later, the Eos reached orbit around Earth. From above, the planet looked eerily beautiful, a swirling mix of greens, browns, and blues, dotted with patches of gray where cities once stood. But beneath the surface, danger lurked. The team gathered in the observation deck, staring down at the world they had barely scratched. Emily felt a strange pull, a longing to return and uncover more answers. She wasn't ready to give up on Earth, not yet. "We should scan the planet again," she suggested. "See if the explosion changed anything. Maybe it disrupted the hybrids' behavior or even improved the atmosphere." Lucas considered her idea. "It's worth a shot," he said finally. "But we need to be careful. If the hybrids are still active, we can't risk sending probes too close to the surface." The crew worked quickly, launching a series of drones equipped with advanced sensors. The machines descended into Earth's atmosphere, gathering data and transmitting it back to the ship. At first, the results seemed promising. The air quality appeared slightly better in certain areas, and the hybrid creatures weren't moving as aggressively as before. But then, something unusual caught their attention. One of the drones picked up a signal, a faint, rhythmic pulse coming from deep within the planet. It wasn't natural. It was mechanical, like a heartbeat echoing through the ground. Emily's eyes widened as she studied the readings. This is incredible," she whispered. Whatever we destroyed in that chamber, it wasn't the only one. What do you mean? Maria asked, leaning closer to the screen. There's another artifact, Emily explained. Or maybe several. They're connected somehow, forming a network. That's why the hybrids reacted so strongly when we blew up the first one. We didn't destroy the system, we just damaged part of it. Lucas frowned. So what does that mean for us? Do we go back down there and keep destroying them? Or is there another way? Emily hesitated. She didn't have all the answers, but she knew one thing for sure. They couldn't ignore this discovery. We need to find the source, she said. If these artifacts are part of a network, there has to be a central hub, a place where everything connects. That's where we'll find the truth about Earth. The room fell silent as everyone processed her words. Going back to the surface meant facing the hybrids again, and possibly triggering an even bigger threat. But staying in orbit wasn't an option either. They had come too far to turn back now. The next morning, the crew prepared for another descent. This time they would target the location of the new signal. The plan was risky, but they had no choice. Emily led the team once again, determined to see the mission through. As the EOS re-entered Earth's atmosphere, the tension aboard the ship was palpable. No one spoke as they landed near the coordinates provided by the drones. The area was different from where they had been before. Instead of ruins, they found themselves in a dense jungle. Towering trees stretched toward the sky, their branches tangled together like a giant web. Strange plants glowed faintly in the dim light, casting eerie shadows on the ground. The air smelled sweet, almost intoxicating, but Emily warned everyone not to let their guard down. This place feels alive, Ryan muttered, gripping his weapon tightly. Like it's watching us. It probably is, Emily replied. These plants, they're not normal. They might be part of the network too. The team moved cautiously, following the signal deeper into the jungle. Every step felt heavier, as if the forest itself was resisting their presence. The glowing plants pulsed brighter as they passed, almost like they were reacting to the intruders. Emily scanned the area with her equipment, searching for any sign of the artifact. After hours of walking, they reached a clearing. In the center stood a massive tree, its trunk twisted and gnarled. Embedded in the bark was a smaller version of the artifact they had destroyed earlier. It pulsed with the same blue light, sending waves of energy through the surrounding plants. This is it, Emily said, her voice filled with awe. Another piece of the puzzle. Before anyone could react, the ground trembled violently. Roots erupted from the soil, wrapping around the team's legs and pulling them toward the tree. The artifact's light grew brighter, almost blinding. Emily struggled against the roots, but they were too strong. Destroy it, she shouted, reaching for a small explosive device in her pack. Now! Ryan grabbed the device and hurled it at the artifact. The explosion sent a shockwave through the jungle, knocking everyone off their feet. When the dust settled, the tree was gone, replaced by a crater smoking with residual energy. Breathing heavily, the team regrouped. Emily looked around, her heart pounding. The signal was gone, but she could feel something else. A shift in the air. Whatever they had done, it had changed the balance of power on Earth. We're not done yet, she said quietly. There's more out there, and we need to find it before it finds us. As they made their way back to the ship, the jungle seemed quieter than before. The glowing plants no longer pulsed, and the oppressive feeling of being watched had faded. For now, they had bought themselves some time. But Emily knew the fight was far from over. Earth was fighting back, and the crew of the EOS was caught in the middle of its struggle. Back aboard the ship, the crew prepared for their next move. The mission had become more complicated than anyone had anticipated, but they were committed to seeing it through. Earth wasn't just a death world, it was a battlefield, and the fate of humanity depended on understanding its secrets. The EOS floated silently in orbit around Earth, its crew battered but alive. The second artifact had been destroyed, but the victory felt hollow. Emily Dawson stood by the observation window, staring down at the planet below. The jungle they had just left was quiet now. But she knew it wouldn't stay that way for long. The network of artifacts wasn't just a random system. It was alive, intelligent, and fighting back. Each explosion they caused only seemed to stir it further, like poking a sleeping beast. Captain Lucas Gray entered the room, his face grim. "We need to decide what to do next," he said. "Every time we destroy one of these things, it feels like we're making things worse. What if we're missing something? What if there's another way?" Emily turned to face him. "I don't know if there is another way," she admitted. "But I can't shake the feeling that destroying them isn't solving the problem. These artifacts, they're part of Earth now. They've become part of the ecosystem." Lucas sighed. "So what are you saying? That we should leave them alone? Let Earth stay hostile forever?" "No," Emily replied quickly. "But maybe we need to think differently. Instead of trying to break the system, maybe we should try to understand it. Maybe there's a way to work with it, find a balance." Maria Lopez, who had been listening quietly, spoke up. "Balance? With a system that's been attacking us since we got here? That doesn't sound safe." "I'm not saying it will be easy," Emily said, "but every time we destroy an artifact, the hybrids come back stronger. It's like the system is learning from us. If we keep doing the same thing, we'll lose. We need to change our approach." Ryan Cole walked over, shaking his head. "Changing? Our approach sounds great in theory, but how do we do that? We don't even know what these artifacts really are, or who built them." Emily hesitated. She didn't have all the answers, but she knew one thing. They couldn't keep running away. "We go deeper," she said finally. "If this network has a central hub, a core, then that's where we'll find the truth. That's where we can either shut it down or negotiate with it." "Negotiate?" Ryan laughed bitterly. "You want to talk to a machine? Good luck with that." "It's worth a shot," Emily insisted. "If the system is intelligent, then maybe it understands us more than we realize. And if it does, maybe we can convince it to stop." Lucas rubbed his temples, clearly torn. He trusted Emily's judgment, but the risks were enormous. Every step they took closer to the heart of the system brought new dangers. Still, he knew they couldn't turn back now. "All right," he said finally. "We'll try it your way, for now. But if things go south, we're pulling out. No arguments." The team prepared for their final descent. This time they targeted the strongest signal yet, a location deep beneath the ocean. The drones had detected massive structures hidden in the depths, far beyond anything they had encountered before. The plan was risky. The water pressure alone could crush their equipment, but they had no choice. If this was the core of the system, they needed to reach it. As the Eos descended into the ocean, the crew braced themselves. The ship's hull groaned under the weight of the water, and the lights outside dimmed as they sank deeper. When they finally reached the bottom, they found themselves surrounded by towering ruins. The structures were ancient, covered in coral and seaweed, but their design was unmistakable. They were artificial, built by someone or something long ago. "This is it," Emily whispered, her voice filled with awe. "This is where it all connects." The team disembarked cautiously, wearing specialized suits to protect them from the crushing pressure. The water was cold and dark, lit only by the ship's floodlights. Strange creatures moved in the shadows, fish with glowing eyes, eels with razor-sharp teeth. The ocean floor felt alive, pulsing with energy. Following the signal, they made their way to the largest structure. Inside, they found a massive chamber filled with glowing crystals. At the center stood a towering artifact, larger and more intricate than any they had seen before. Its surface was covered in symbols glowing faintly in sync with the rhythm of the ocean currents. "This must be the core," Emily said, her voice trembling. "This is what controls everything." Before anyone could respond, the ground shook, violently. From the shadows emerged a new breed of hybrid creatures, larger, faster, and more aggressive than before. Their bodies shimmered with bioluminescent patterns, blending seamlessly with the underwater environment. They swarmed toward the team, their movements swift and precise. "Set up defenses," Lucas shouted, firing his weapon. The team formed, a tight circle fighting desperately to hold off the attack. But the hybrids kept coming, relentless and unstoppable. "We can't stay here," Ryan yelled, his voice strained. "We need to blow it up and get out." "No!" Emily shouted back. "Not yet. If we destroy this, we might lose our chance to understand it." Lucas hesitated, torn between survival and discovery. Finally, he nodded. "Do what you have to do, Emily, but make it quick." Emily stepped forward, her hands trembling as she approached the artifact. She activated her scanner, trying to decipher the symbols on its surface. As she worked, the artifact began to pulse faster, reacting to her presence. The hybrids screeched in anger, closing in on the team. "Hurry up," Alex shouted, firing wildly to keep the creatures at bay. His suit was damaged, and blood seeped through a tear in the fabric. Despite his injuries, he refused to give up. Finally, Emily found what she was looking for, a sequence of symbols that matched the ones she had studied earlier. Using her equipment, she inputted the code, hoping it would deactivate the system. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the artifact's glow dimmed and the hybrids froze in place. "It worked," Emily whispered, hardly daring to believe it. "I think I shut it down." But her relief was short-lived. The artifact began to pulse again, this time with a deep red light. The water around them grew warmer and the ground shook violently. Something was wrong. "We triggered a failsafe," Maria shouted, panic rising in her voice. "It's collapsing! Get out of here!" Lucas ordered, grabbing Emily's arm and pulling her toward the exit. The team sprinted back to the ship, dodging falling debris and bursts of energy. Behind them, the artifact exploded, sending a shockwave through the water. When they finally reached the Eos, they climbed aboard just as the ruins began to collapse completely. The ship ascended quickly, leaving the ocean behind. As they broke through the surface, the crew collapsed onto the floor, gasping for breath. Back in orbit, the team stared down at Earth. The atmosphere looked different, cleaner, clearer. The air quality readings showed significant improvement, and the hybrid signals had disappeared entirely. Whatever Emily had done, it had worked, but at a cost. "I don't know if we fixed it," Emily said softly, her voice filled with uncertainty, "or if we just delayed the inevitable." Lucas placed a hand on her shoulder. "You did your best, Emily. That's all anyone can ask for." As the Eos prepared to leave Earth's orbit, Emily gazed out the window one last time. The planet below was still scarred, still dangerous, but it was also alive and resilient. Humanity might never fully reclaim it, but perhaps that wasn't the point. Earth wasn't just a death world anymore. It was a world reborn, waiting for its next chapter. And as the ship disappeared into the stars, Emily couldn't help but wonder if Earth would ever forgive them, or if it would simply continue to fight back no matter what they did. The Eos drifted through the vast emptiness of space, its engines humming softly as it carried the crew further away from Earth. The planet they had left behind was still a mystery, a mix of beauty and danger that defied explanation. Emily Dawson sat alone in the observation deck, staring out at the stars. Her mind replayed everything that had happened: the artifacts, the hybrids, the explosions, and finally, the core beneath the ocean. She had shut it down, or at least she thought she had, but the uncertainty gnawed at her. Had they truly made things better, or had they only delayed the next disaster? Captain Lucas Gray joined her after a while, his face lined with exhaustion. "You've been quiet," he said, sitting beside her. "What's on your mind?" Emily hesitated before answering. "I keep thinking about what we did down there. Was it enough? Did we fix anything, or did we just make Earth angrier?" Lucas sighed. "We'll probably never know for sure, but one thing is certain. We gave it a chance. That's more than anyone else has done in centuries." Emily nodded slowly, but doubt lingered in her eyes. Earth isn't like other planets. It's alive in ways we don't fully understand. What if shutting down the core wasn't the right move? What if it needed that system to survive? Lucas frowned. "Survive? You mean the planet itself?" "I don't know," Emily admitted. "Maybe. Or maybe the system was trying to protect Earth from us, from humanity. We abandoned it, left it to rot, and now it's fighting back. Maybe it doesn't want us here anymore. The captain didn't respond immediately. He stared out at the endless expanse of stars, lost in thought. Finally, he spoke. If Earth doesn't want us, then why did it let us leave? Why didn't it stop us completely? Maybe it did, Emily whispered. Maybe letting us go was its way of saying, enough. Back in the main cabin, the rest of the crew gathered to discuss their next steps. They were battered, both physically and emotionally, but they knew their mission wasn't over yet. Even though they had left Earth behind, the questions remained. What would happen to the planet now? And what would happen to humanity? Ryan Cole leaned against the wall, his arms crossed. So, what's the plan? Do we report back to the colonies and tell them Earth is still a no-go zone? Or do we pretend we fixed everything and hope for the best? Maria Lopez shook her head. We can't lie about this. Earth isn't safe, not yet. But maybe someday it will be. For now, all we can do is share what we learned and let others decide what to do with it. Alex Carter, who was recovering from his injuries, spoke up quietly. Do you think anyone will believe us? About the artifacts, the hybrids, all of it? It doesn't matter if they believe us, Lucas said firmly. What matters is that we tried. Humanity needs to know the truth, even if it's hard to hear. Emily walked into the room, her expression thoughtful. There's something else we need to consider, she said. The system we destroyed, it wasn't just controlling Earth. It was adapting, learning. If it comes back, and I think it might, we need to be ready. Ryan raised an eyebrow. Ready how? We barely survived last time. By understanding it better, Emily replied. If the system adapts, so should we. Instead of fighting it, maybe we can find a way to coexist, to work with it instead of against it. Maria frowned. Coexist with a planet that's actively hostile? That sounds impossible. Not impossible, Emily corrected. Difficult, yes, but not impossible. Earth isn't just trying to kill us, it's trying to heal itself. If we respect that, maybe we can find common ground. As the days passed, the crew worked together to compile their findings. They recorded every detail, the artifacts, the hybrids, the strange ecosystems, and the core beneath the ocean. Emily poured her heart into the report, determined to capture the complexity of Earth without oversimplifying it. She wanted future generations to see the planet not as a death world, but as a living, breathing entity with its own rules and rhythms. When the report was finished, Lucas called everyone together for one final meeting. This is it, he said, holding up the data chip containing their findings. Once we deliver this, our mission is officially over, but I want you all to remember something. We didn't fail. We faced the unknown, and we came back alive. That's something to be proud of. The crew nodded silently, each lost in their own thoughts. They had started this journey hoping to reclaim Earth, but they ended it with a deeper understanding of how much they had lost and how much work lay ahead. The Eos reached the colony world of New Eden several weeks later. The sight of green, fields and blue skies filled the crew with a mix of relief and sadness. Earth had once looked like this too, before humanity had drained it of life. As they disembarked, they were greeted by officials eager to hear their report. Emily stepped forward, clutching the data chip tightly. We didn't fix Earth, she began, her voice steady despite the weight of her words. But we learned something important. Earth isn't just a planet, it's alive. It breathes, it fights, and it remembers. If we ever want to return, we need to approach it differently, with respect, with humility. The officials listened intently, their expressions unreadable. When Emily finished, one of them asked, So, what happens now? Do we abandon Earth entirely? No, Emily replied firmly. We don't abandon it. We wait, we learn, and when the time is right, we try again. Months later, Emily stood on a hill overlooking New Eden's capital city. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. She felt a sense of peace she hadn't known in years. Earth was far away, but it was never far from her thoughts. Someday, humanity might find a way to heal the wounds it had inflicted, not just on Earth, but on itself. For now, though, Emily was content to watch the stars appear one by one. Each one reminded her of the vastness of the universe and the small role humanity played within it. Earth wasn't just a death world, it was a teacher, a challenge, and perhaps a second chance. And Emily knew that when the time came, she would be ready to face it again.